Dig the music. Hold on. Who is that? Michael Jackson? I don't know. Is that who it is?
It's the Burnley manager. Yep. When I used to play against him, he was Michael Jackson. All of a sudden, weirdly, he's now Mike Jackson, not Michael Jackson. It's strange, isn't it?
This is and Michael is the more formal. You think it would go that way, you know? This
yes,
is the way
but also I don't think he wants to be associated with a.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So with a, okay,
Yes.
It's more so that than the other.
Pretty much.
Well, we're associated with a team. Hello, everybody. It's pregame live, New York City FC style, and we're here an hour before kickoff every single game. And we're here for this team that scored 11 goals in the last couple of matches, New York City FC. They're trying to make it 3 on the trot, as you would say in England. And I don't think we use that phrase in the States. I just hear you guys say it.
You say 3 on the bounce, don't you?
Sometimes. I just say they're trying to get their 3rd win in a row. So, and it's against the San Jose Earthquakes, who did get a bounce, the interim coach bounce, and beat Seattle. We can't claim that that's the only reason they came back from 3-1 down to defeat Seattle last week 4-3, but it gives you the idea that there's a little more going now, and will that energy carry on? It's 10 a.m. on the West Coast right now. You know, we know they came in a couple of days ago, but New York City, they seem to have found a bit of a groove. A little bit later on, Chris Sakonis will be with us to provide the opposition analysis, give us some ideas about this San Jose team. But for you and me, Matty, it's New York City coming off a 5-4 win against Toronto, preceded by a 6-0 win over Real Salt Lake. Lots of goals, lots of good goals. Some penalties too, but they were drawn. So, you know,
lots of good goals, and specifically, obviously, in the last game as well, spread around. We know that there's goals in the team, and it's not just in the starting 11. There's goals off the bench as well, with Pereira coming in and scoring. That's the thing. It's so fluid, and it doesn't really seem to matter who that front 4 is. We'll include Castellanos and then the 3 in behind him. Whether it's Maxi Morales, whether it's Thiago, Santi Rodriguez, Torres Magno, Pereira, it really doesn't matter. Andres Jason at times as well. You can put anybody up there and it's equally fluid. And I think the crux of that, it all revolves around Valentin Castellanos and his hard work, doesn't it? It's his endeavour that makes the team, NYCFC, win the ball back higher up the field the majority of the time. He makes life so difficult for centre-halves and defences and goalkeepers as a whole. And I mean that defensively. He then makes it very hard in the attacking sense as well. I think it will be a real shame when he leaves.
Yeah, and it's becoming it's beyond inevitable, you would think at this point, considering his form. How about Ronnie Dyla? We were just down on the field a few minutes ago, just having a brief chat with Ronnie. Recorded a pregame show with him earlier in the week on Thursday after training, which will air on our live commentary on the New York City FC Network, which begins at 12:45 Eastern today. But he said the last match, he said that was Tati's best game. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, he did.
Which, you know, he had a goal and an assist, but he was talking about just the overall, you know, and you referred to the defensive side. And when you put the entire package together, he said that was Tati's best game. A guy who scored 4 goals in the previous match.
Yeah, he makes the team tick, and it's hard to do that as a centre forward. It's normally a centre half or predominantly a centre midfielder who makes the team tick. But Castellanos does it from the front. He leads from the front, yes, in terms of goals scored. But for me, as I say, any good team defends from the front, and you don't get a better defender than Valentin Castellanos in your own attacking third or the opposition's defensive third. He's a joy to watch, and the fact of you see how much he enjoys the hard work. Of course he enjoys scoring goals, that's what he's paid to do. He enjoys the hard work. He enjoys riling up the opposition.
He enjoys
the
battle
physical
with the center
contact.
backs. Yeah, he does. Well, let's go back to that game a little bit. This was my favorite goal of the match, and it's interesting. It came from Keaton Parks. His first career MLS goal came on September 14th, 2019 here at Yankee Stadium against San Jose. It was the last time these two have met due to COVID. But let's go back to the call of this one. It made it 4-2. First time ball, Acevedo with the inside of the right foot finds Amundsen. Now it's Thiago, and now it's Parks! New York City 4! Toronto 2! And Keaton Parks exalts the supporters behind the goal to our left.
It is just wave after wave of relentless pressure from NYCFC. Another flowing move after Cozy Thompson gives it away. And Keaton Parks, after Thiago gets challenged on the back post, Keaton Parks is in the right place at the right time and just sweeps it home. Absolutely magnificent.
That was Matty Lawrence and me on the call last week. And so a couple of things stood out about that goal. And we mentioned Castellanos, his movement off the ball, how he drifted, then checked, and the ball went past him. And then Keaton Parks lets it run into Thiago Andrade, and then Parks doesn't turn off, man. He stays locked into the play, gets himself to the goal and finishes. That was one of my favorite goals of the year just because of all the movement and winning the ball on the San Jose half. Thompson, you described it there. It made a weak clearance, but it was because of the pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't see that, and it's not being disparaging to Keaton Parks. You don't see him arriving in the penalty area that often, apart from set pieces. The fact that he didn't switch off, as you say, when he let the ball run as well, he turned and got involved in play. And he can do that more and more. I would call it for MLS parlance, it's what Tim Cahill did for the Red Bulls. It's what Lampard did to a certain extent here for NYCFC, and certainly what Lampard did throughout his career. Those late runs, arriving in the box, it's very, very hard as a defensive midfielder to hand over those late runs to a centre half. That's where you find those pockets of space, as those late midfield runs. I think Parks can do it time and time again. We don't see enough of that from him, but there's plenty more. He's still a young man.
Well, there may be more because of how New York City is setting themselves up. So this was Ronnie Dyla afterwards, and he's talking about Parks and Santi Rodriguez playing together a little bit, plus some other things here. This is after the 5-4 win over Toronto.
We have so many different qualities inside the team now. If last year we had more wingers that were inside and there were not so much speed, but there was more work and like midfielders. But now we have wingers also, so we can play wide and can attack 1v1. And we have now with Santi and Keaton also, they play higher up in the pitch with as 8, so we have more pressure up front, and we have qualities that suit each other. So I think it's harder for the opponents now to stop us, whatever it's an established play or in a transition or in set play. And I don't know how many chances we created today, but we had 10 chances against Seattle. We scored 1 goal. We had 10 chances against Salt Lake. We scored 6. And today I'm sure we had 10 also, and we scored 5. Keep on producing 10. We have a good chance to score that kind of amount of goals in the future as well.
New York City has a season-high 22 shots against RSL and then 22 more against TFC. So they were bombarding the opponent's goal. But what are some of the things that stood out to you there?
Certainly how happy Ronnie Dyla is with the creativity of his forward line. I think he knows that he's got a very good bunch. I think he knows that he probably can't hold on to them for that long, but he's going to enjoy them while he can.
That's the way the supporters should look at this too.
And look, this is a production line here. This is about finding young talent, maturing the young talent to a certain degree, selling them on for a profit, and then watching them flourish, whether it be in other South American leagues, whether it be in Europe, wherever it may be. I think you have to get used to it. And pretty much every club around the world is a selling club. Liverpool used to be, and still is to a certain degree, is a selling club. Sold Suarez, sold Coutinho, which funded an awful lot of the players that they've got there now. Everybody's a selling club. You shouldn't get lulled into that false sense that you think you can hold on to players for 5 years or for 10 years. And look, what Ronnie Dyla does know is he's got legs in that attack as well. Yes, Maxi Morales can come in and he plays a role himself as well. But the legs in those 4 front players, it's quite phenomenal. And they're willing to work hard as well. It's all well and good having a good engine and being able to sprint and having those high-intensity sprints throughout the game, but it's knowing when to do it and having the willingness to help back and help out your fullbacks. And I think we're seeing Thiago and Tylers Magno finally doing that when maybe they didn't previously.
Well, we know we didn't. They didn't.
I was leading
part of our pregame briefing with Ronnie Dyla. Yeah, and he really intimated that one of the reasons Tylers Magno didn't get more minutes last year, and he has said it pretty clearly before, but he didn't defend well, or didn't choose to defend. And now when you watch Magno play, I mean, he's back tackling, he's causing turnovers, and turnovers at a part of the field where New York City can counter.
Look, predominantly he's been playing in lesser teams. He's been playing youth team football predominantly because he's so young, and you can get away with that. He can get away with standing up front. The team give him the ball, he dribbles it around six and smashes it in the top corner. But now he has that ability and also that desire to help out defensively. Because when he said he's not going to play. If he doesn't play on both sides of the ball, he's not going to play. There's enough players within this squad who are willing to work hard. If you can't do your job, the tactical plan that Ronnie Dyler lays out, you sit down. You sit down and you don't play. We'll see.
Players want to play.
Players want to play.
Thiago, it took him a little time to figure out the defensive side as well. Hey, one more thing about last week's game, and I thought Bob Bradley, the Toronto FC coach, if you're coaching against a team and you're playing against a team and you hear the head coach of the opponent say this afterwards, you're like, yeah, this is what we're trying to do.
I'm saying it about Michael, but I could say it about everybody. There was hesitancy. There's moments where if they've got a guy running through and there's a guy right in front of you, now you're not sure, should I step to the ball or do I have to deal with the runner? And so they were able to put us on our heels in that stretch. And I would have liked us to find a way to regain that collective intensity and push them back a little bit.
Yeah, he's talking about 3 goals in I think it was a 20-minute period to overtake that game, but not sure when to step, not sure who to track. And that's attacking mobility at its best when you've got the defense on their heels.
Yeah, and it's that fluidity of players able to move outside of their positions, which makes it even harder as well. You don't have Tyler Magno playing left wing, Thiago playing right wing. They have that fluidity to move about, which makes it even harder for the opposition. Look, we used the phrase wave after wave of attacks on numerous occasions, and that was it. They had absolutely no answer to it, Toronto. Michael Bradley should be the leader, should be the captain and the one moving people about. This is how we stop what's going on. It was so fluid. They were so swift in transition, NYCFC, that even the player, and I'll give him his credit, Michael Bradley's had a fantastic football career, whether it be at AS Roma, whether it be for the US men's national team. He hasn't quite got the legs now, but he should be able to maneuver his teammates about. He had absolutely no idea. It was relentless. And Bob Bradley just admitted that to us as well. He said it wasn't just Michael. He picked on his son, obviously, but there was other people we could talk to, he could talk to us about. They had no answer to that relentless wave after wave of pressure.
They did not, and now it's 16 goals on the season, which is the third most in MLS, which is pretty remarkable considering the futility in the goal scoring department early on. But 11 goals in 2 matches, I guess we'll do that. Tati Castellanos, who had no goals through the first 5 matches, now is just one behind the Golden Boot lead, who is actually this kid Jimenez for Bob Bradley TFC, and Driussi for Austin. How about the second-year club Austin and what they're doing?
I've been really impressed with Austin because I was very disparaging about them last season. They somehow managed to lose 21 in 34 games last season, which you have to try really hard. In a league that has so much parity, to lose virtually 2/3 of your game, you have to try really hard to be bad and to lose. And they managed it very well. But what they've done and how they've turned things around, and they've signed good, experienced MLS players, haven't they? Obviously, Alex Ring, but they had him last year. They had Matt Beazer last year. Then it's now Cascanti, Ethan Finley, players who are Maxi Arruti, players who are coming maybe to the end of their careers, but who know how to win in this league and put in other players around them, younger, technically more gifted players. And it's certainly working for us. And you have to give them credit for that game plan after having such a bad 2021.
Well, the San Jose team, and again, I'm Glenn Crooks, Matty Lawrence. We're getting ready for the live commentary on the New York City FC Network beginning at 12:45. First, our New York City pregame live here for you. We're in Yankee Stadium. It really is a gorgeous spring day in the Bronx, mid to high 60s. Goalkeepers warming up on the far end. Those are the New York City keepers. Earlier, we saw, and we're going to get to San Jose and Chris Sakonis in just a moment, but earlier, Matty, we saw Maxime Chenot.
Yes.
And I just want to play some of that video. He was doing fitness testing before the game.
Yeah, but surely he's been testing it all week in training.
He didn't wear a mask on Thursday.
Oh, right.
Maxime was down on the field when we went down, Matty, to confer with Ronnie Dyla, and I spoke to Maxime for about 5 to 7 minutes. He's going to have to wear this mask perhaps the rest of his career. He had a real serious injury. There was a period of time where he could not see. Doctors initially told him 50-50 chance that he might not regain full vision in the left eye. There was this friendly fire, an elbow from a teammate accidentally for Luxembourg on international duty, and he is on the bench tonight or this afternoon, so he won't be in the line. On Thursday, we went to training, and he was going at it, small-sided. So was Thiago Martins, who had been on the injured list, and so was Maxi Morales, who had also been on the injured list. Well, Morales and Chanot on the bench, and it is Thiago Martins in the lineup. But what a serious injury, and potentially the fact that you might have to wear a mask the remainder of your career to protect the eye and the head. That's crazy.
We know how important, obviously, eyes and heads are to us. We've only got one set of eyes and one head and one brain, and we saw what Petr Cech had to do for the remainder of his career. He always wore the cap to protect his head because he fractured his skull. Maybe Maxime Chanot is the same. Look, I don't want to speculate on whether he has to wear it, but what I do know is I never wore one throughout my career, but I know full well it would be really annoying having a clump of plastic on my face protecting my eye and protecting my nose. We know Edgar Davids obviously wore protective goggles for the latter stage of his career. The player who played for Milan and obviously for the Dutch national team. So yes, players have done it before, but I think it does affect you. And certainly somebody as physical as Chanot as well, who gets involved in so many aerial duels, goes up for corners, is very important attacking corners and defensive corners as well. So it is going to have a bearing on his career, I would have thought. And we did see him getting used to wearing that mask. He was kicking balls up in the air just so he could control them themselves. But it's still nothing like what you're going to have to deal with on a match day. So hopefully he gets maybe, if it's 3-4-0, they're up, maybe gets 10 or 15 minutes to go out there and play with it on and see what it's like with that physical contact.
But the thing I think of is probably if you thought about Maxime Chanot and took a consideration as to what his greatest quality is within this team, and it's defensive headers.
Yep.
And you've heard Ronnie say since Chanot has been out that they've struggled on balls crossed from either flank and the clearances. And he has been statistically one of the best at it in MLS since his arrival. He's the longest serving member of the New York City team. And the heading of the ball, that's the thing to me.
Yeah, he's one of the last school or one of the last old school centre halves. He enjoys defending, he enjoys physical contact, and he is not always, but predominantly in the right place at the right time defensively, whether it's clearances with his feet, but more often than not with his head. And so I haven't seen, we're a long way away obviously from taking a look at Chanot. I'd like to know where the mask ends. Where does it, because you head the ball most of the time with the meat of your forehead. The ball's quite big, it takes up most of your forehead. So is he going to have to almost readjust and be heading with the top part of his forehead?
That's
and
right.
These are all minimal, they sound minimal, but it's going to take an awful lot of getting used to if he has to adjust how he's headed the ball for the last 3 decades of his life.
Well, that's the Maxime Chanot story, and we wish him the best. And he just looked to the sky and said, look, I could see, and I'm going to play. And, getting used to a mask is, maybe a trivial part of it for him now, knowing that he survived it and, all's good.
Well, exactly. You just want him to have his health first and foremost. And, of course, we want him to come back and play as well as he can. But, right now he has his health, he has his eyesight, and let's see what happens from here on in. I don't think anybody can say what's going to happen 2 years down the line, whether he's still going to need a mask or not. But, yes, there is the potential that he may have to wear it for a number of years, if not the rest of his career.
All right, it's time now to welcome in Chris Sakonis, who provides the analysis of the opposition. Today it's the San Jose Earthquakes, and they've struggled, but they have a new coach, and let's let Chris fill you in. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, guys. And, struggle, I think, is the best way to describe how the season has started for San Jose, sitting 13th in the Western Conference, 1-3-4 overall record. But they are coming into this match on a bit of a high note. They won their first game of the season 4-3 against the Seattle Sounders last week. Christian Espinoza just completely went off in that game. 3 goals, 1 assist, good for MLS Player of the Week for match week 8, including a game-winning penalty that he scored late in the second half of that game. So he's definitely going to be someone to watch. And that first win of the season comes amid a bit of coaching turmoil. Matias Almeida was fired as the manager on April 16th after they drew National 2-2. Was sort of going back and forth with the front office a bit, so some controversy on that end. Finally, he's let go. His interim replacement is former San Jose 2 manager Alex Cavello. He stepped in and was able to sort of lead them to that win. He was talking earlier in the week about the transition between that, and one thing that he said was just the ability to sort of adjust the tactics a bit. You can't completely reinvent the wheel when you have a mid-season coaching change, but definitely some adjustments needed to be made given the record. And in the first game, at least, it seemed to have paid off against the Sounders. So in that sense, too, also, when you look at offensively and defensively, it's sort of a tale of two teams. On the defensive side, they've struggled mightily. 20 goals conceded through 8 matches. That's 2.5 per game, which is the highest both total goals through 8 games and the highest average at 2.5. They've allowed 2 or more goals in 6 of their 8 matches. One of their starting center backs, Nathan, will be out today. A 1-match suspension after a tackle in the Sounders match led to a yellow card. So there'll be a man short on that end as well. And that's really been the key struggle for them. Is just an inability to stop on the defensive side and just can't keep the ball out of the net. That's something that they're going to be looking to fix in this match, guys.
All right, Chris, well done. And, we're going to get to the Nathan ejection in just a moment. That's Chris Sakonis. He will be with us throughout the match, hosting our halftime show and our post-game show. And listen in at Glenn Crooks for the highlights of this match as the game progresses. I still find it remarkable, and they're produced by our man, Chris Sakonis. Thank you so much, Chris. And that Nathan red card, Matty, you said to me, and this you've seen a lot of soccer, you hadn't seen a more volatile, violent, kind of purposeful red card violation in a while, or in your career, or ever, or what did you say?
Yeah, everything you said. I also want to add stupid to that. Just completely reckless.
Yeah.
It was somebody... I've seen players not playing the ball before and trying to hurt an opponent. Fair enough, if that's what you want to do, but not in the penalty area. Not in the penalty area when you know full well you're going to be giving away a penalty. He wasn't playing the ball in the slightest, Nathan. He went straight for the shins of Rui Diaz, and not just where the shin pad is. He went a little bit higher than that as well. It was at least top quarter of the shin bone. He tried to hurt him. It was reckless. It was dumb as well. And yes, he didn't get sent off during the game. It was a retrospective red card, so that's why he's suspended today. But it was just dumb, and it was giving a goal away to the opposition, or more likely than not, it was going because it was a red card. It was just a very, very bizarre challenge in the penalty area. As I say, I've seen them on the flanks, fine. You wanted to hurt someone, hurt them on the flanks in the middle third of the pitch, but not in the penalty area. It's just... I don't even know what to say apart from stupid and dumb and reckless. And,
he's an important figure at the back, and it'll be Tanner Beeson, a 25-year-old from North Carolina, first-round super draft pick in 2020 Stanford, who will start at the back now for San Jose. You see, and you've seen, if you're watching this, the starting 11 for New York City being scrolled at the bottom, and with Alfredo Morales suspended, a couple of yellow cards in the last match against TFC, so he is out. So no surprise, it's Nico Acevedo and Keaton Parks back in the midfield together. The difficulty for Ronnie Dyla will be next week when Morales is fit and ready to go when New York City hosts Sporting KC at Citi Field, how he'll start the midfield. But the rest of the 11, no surprises. Maxi Morales is back healthy. He's on the bench, so he was available to be in the 11. But Santi Rodriguez, that front four over the last 2 games, you'd be hard-pressed to mess with that.
You
Right?
can't. There's absolutely no way you can mess with it. It doesn't matter how good Maxi Morales is, and we know how very good he is. He can unlock defences, but you can't change that front four. I don't think you could change the starting lineup. Of course, you had to because Morales Alfredo is suspended. But apart from that, there's no way you can change this. Acevedo and Parks were absolutely phenomenal. Yes, we'll talk a load about the front four and the 5 goals they scored, but I thought Acevedo and Parks really were the catalyst for that, for the good beginning to, well, maybe not beginning, but after the 2-0 deficit, I thought they were the catalyst for NYCFC getting back into the game.
I just am thinking about what Ronnie Dyla told us prior to the game when we were down on the field just having a chat about Acevedo, about Magno, about Thiago, about Santi Rodriguez, and Tati Castellanos, it's perhaps a foregone conclusion that he'll be gone in the summer. But you got to figure those 3, they might not be around for that long either. And then you look at Acevedo. But that's part of the purpose of David Lee as the sporting director is to go to South America, scout players that you feel will progress in a manner like in Acevedo. I mean, it was unclear to me until I think very recently whether he was going to be able to handle the rigors of MLS in the midfield, but his game against Toronto.
I don't want to be too pessimistic. I always seem too pessimistic, but I'm still not convinced with Acevedo because you need to do it over a period of games.
That's
just
true.
Having the odd game or two, fine. Anyone can fluke a good game here.
That's right.
I do think Acevedo has a pretty high ceiling, but you have to see it time and time again. But yeah, of course, David Lee, the scouting network, of course, it's not just David Lee, but he is at the head of it. So, of course, you give him the plaudits. But then the branches below him as well,
he always talks about the network.
Who are scouting these players from South America. We know you're always going to have failures, of course. It's impossible to choose a good player all the time or know that somebody's going to fit in and gel. It may not always be about the football. They may not just like New York City, or they may not like the training ground or the culture or the climate or the nutrition, whatever it is. But they've been largely successful with this bunch of players we've seen so far. And the self-congratulatory backslapping happens when you sell these players on for more money than you bought them in for.
That's right.
And I just don't see somebody like Tyler Magno being here for any longer than 12 or 18 months. Doesn't mean I don't want to watch him for the next 5 years here. No, but I feel that he will have failed himself if he hasn't moved on within 12 to 18 months because of the talent he undoubtedly has.
We know, and you referred earlier to Chanot, an old school center back, loves defending. And I don't know how many players in this league are going to love watching Tyler Magno run at them.
No. Nobody's going to enjoy that. I'd much prefer just someone who runs in a straight line, who may be really, really quick, but they just run in the straight line. Tyler Magno can go both ways.
Yeah.
And he's 6'3", 6'4" as well. He's got a large body, he's got a large frame.
Dude. I saw him this week. I forgot to ask him what his shoe size is because he's got a big old foot too. Feet. He's got 2 feet.
Well, that's the thing. He's got 2 feet.
Yeah,
he
sure
really does have 2 feet.
And we've seen him score in the air too. Hey, one final thing, Matty, before we break, we've got a game to broadcast for you. There you see the starting 11 for New York City FC. We mentioned Nathan and the red card, and I was on a pro referees call this week. TV, radio, invited to, and they have them pretty frequently. And I thought I would just share a couple of things. In particular, was the points of emphasis, which are, as Howard Webb put it, working to enhance the look of the game, and not take away from the attack, like stop a promising attack. We see players. So and the idea is to book players more frequently when these things are deliberate delays on set pieces, repeatedly committing offenses, and then dissent, the gathering, the enveloping of the referee after a call. But the one thing I wanted to point out, and then get your final thought, and then we got to get out of here. Yellow cards have seen a significant increase, 51%. And our official today, and it mimics what his stats are, Guido Gonzalez, through 4 games, has given out 6.5 yellows per game. His average as an MLS referee over the years, I think it's close to 40 games, is 4.5. So he's giving out 2 more yellows per game.
Yeah, look, as long as you know that as a player, as long as you know what the stipulations are, as long as you know a referee is going to be consistent with it as well. We used to have it back in England all the time in pre-season. We always used to get referees coming to us and giving a lecture and saying, this is what we're going to be focusing on more this year. And you knew for the first 2 or 3 months, if it was encroachment, if it was back-chatting, if it was groups getting around the referee, that you knew not to do it and you knew to be careful. I don't mind a referee booking players for anything as long as it's consistent and as long as you understand why they are doing it. And look, I think those numbers will drop off as the season progresses inevitably.
Yeah.
But you know that right now, Howard Webb and Pro, the focal point is on the points that you mentioned. So as a player, you've just got to be smart. And you've also got to understand who your referee on the day is. And you have to understand how that referee interprets the laws of the game as well. And unless you're moronic or unless you're a little bit stupid, you'll learn that within 5 or 10 minutes of the refereeing your game. And I think the NYCFC players have dealt with referees very quickly this season.
We were talking about Magno earlier, so Giovanni Gava just put on Facebook, Tyler's Magno. I think he's a fan.
Yeah. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah. Yes, so is Acevedo up there? Somebody's telling me to correct my lineup, and yes, indeed. And I appreciate that let's just give him credit here. Stephen Parks. Well, Acevedo for Morales. So Alfredo Morales not in the 11 because he's suspended. I went with an old starting 11 here. So forgive me. So it is Nico Acevedo. And thank you, Stephen, for pointing that out. We will, we permit comments, corrections, questions. Yeah, we've got it all
here.
here.
Corrections.
Not too many, please. All right, that's Matty Lawrence, Chris Sakonis behind us. I'm Glenn Crooks. We've got the live commentary coming up 12:45. Pregame show with Ronnie Dyla on the New York City FC Network, which is nycfc.com/radio. So from Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, New York, beautiful, gorgeous spring day. If you're not at the game, hopefully you could tune us in, or you could do both. Hold your phone up to your ear, listen to us while you're watching the game. What the heck? All right, enjoy it, everybody.